American Fairytale, Chapter 2. William's father was a tall, powerful man in commoner's clothing. His chest was as large as a barrel. His arms were so large they dwarfed any man's William had ever seen. A weathered face with eyes burning bright with intensity gazed down at the boy. He was the most intimidating man William had ever met. Within the hour, William was whisked away to a sailing ship bound for the colonies in the Americas. When he asked his father about it, his father replied, "It's business, boy. Always business. I think, though, it's time I involved my family in my business. Speaking of business, please tell me of yourself. You are my business at the moment." So William told his story. He talked until the evening meal, through it, and late into the night. In the morning he asked his father what his story was. All he got was, "My story must remain a mystery for now, boy." "Please, father, if you won't tell me about yourself, can you tell me about my mother?" A faraway look took his father's face. "She was a sinner, boy. The chief of sinners. Your mother was on a first-name basis with every cutthroat, pirate, cutpurse, footpad, ballad man, and any other kind of scallywag you can imagine. Not only was she their friend, but she partook in evil herself. There was no depravity your mother was not capable of. I loved her, though. The Lord help me, I loved her." Anger filled young William. Steadying his face, his father stated, "I can see I have offended your English sensibilities. Know this, boy. I would not lie to you about your mother. The good Lord only knows how I fell in love with such a creature, but I did. The cardinal was very put out about it, let me tell you. She definitely offended his sensibilities." "Cardinal, are you Catholic?" "I am, boy. I have no love for the Church of England or for the silly rabble of Protestants and their ilk. Mother Church is my passion. I have strong vows to God Almighty. Terrible vows." Tears came to William's eyes. "Why did you marry a sinner if you were a man of God?" His father nodded gravely. "First off, I never said I was a man of God, but I am a warrior for him. A holy warrior, you might say. Second, your mother was a sinner. Oh, but she was so much more. She was the life of the party, a bright light in a world of drab and gray. In short, she was fun to be around." "Do you think she was killed by one of your enemies?" His father laughed bitterly. "Did Edmund tell you that? That old fool talks too much." Again he sighed. "No, it was not one of my enemies. Most of them are dead. And the man I hunt now, if he found out about your mother, no one would have survived. Pentingworth, Edmund, the cardinal, all their servants, and you would have vanished without a trace." "Is your enemy as bad as all that?" His father glanced around, lowering his voice. "The man I hunt may be a match for all the armies of the world combined." William glanced sharply at his father, but he could see no jest in his face. Sternly, he commented, "There are many backwards armies in this world, but surely your enemy is no match for the British army." With a snort, his father rejoined, "I can see you have strong English sensibilities, but hopefully common sense will win out." William snorted, shooting back a host of arguments to support the superiority of the British war machine. He described ships of war, battlefield tactics, and past history to his father's growing amusement. When he finished, all his father would say is, "You have a good head for information, but we shall endeavor to put it to better use." Several weeks at sea produced nothing new about his father. Dry land was spotted, however, and his people rushed to the rails in excitement. His father pulled him back for a moment. "Not a word about our true purpose here, boy. The enemy I hunt employs an army of spies around the world. We are merely a father and son trying to establish trade with the Indians." A few days later, they met those Indians. William was shocked. They were clad only in square animal skin loincloths, were covered with tattoos, and the back of their skulls were flat. Although he expected them to carry bows and arrows, he saw muskets over their shoulders and ball and powder kegs at their waists. "Savages," William muttered to himself. One of the Indians spoke English. "You are the man we are expecting?" "I am indeed," his father replied. Your friend paid much to let you live among us. His father shrugged. Was it enough? It is enough for you and the boy, but no others. No settlement, no missionaries. Again, his father shrugged. That was the arrangement. Pointing to a rowboat, his father said, I'm all loaded up. Can we get going? The Indians looked at each other, clearly regretting their deal, but motioned for him to follow. Don't fall behind in your English boat, one growled. Shedding his coat and shirt, his father displayed a massive physique. I won't. Deftly, his father rowed up the Mississippi, following his Indian guides. They went all day, with neither the Indians or his father getting tired. Finally, the Indians pulled off to the side of camp, and they joined them. After his father tied their boat up, he pulled out a longbow and a medieval broadsword. William was a little more than embarrassed. At least the savages have the sense to use modern weapons, he thought bitterly. The next day, William asked his father why he used a longbow. Boy, the musket is a child's toy. Perhaps someday it will be an awesome weapon, but now it is the weapon of boys playing soldiers. William retorted hotly, His Majesty's forces are the best soldiers on the planet. How dare you insult them? His father chuckled at the outburst. How long does it take to train one of those elite British soldiers you speak of? Less than 6 months, I'll warrant. They teach them how to load a musket quickly. Bah! You could train monkeys to do that. Yes, they learn marching and formation and get splendid uniforms to impress women with. But they are not soldiers. Never mistake discipline as a substitute for skill. So your longbow is better? William spluttered. Pausing on the oars, his father asked, Boy, how long does it take to master the longbow? I don't know. Few years? The rowboat started again as his father pulled on the oars. I'll let you stew on it for a while. If I argue with you right now, I fear your British sensibilities will get in the way. William was angry. Casting about, his eyes fell on the beastly broadsword his father had strapped to his waist. You can't tell me your broadsword is better than a modern sword. Why, a modern swords expert would kill you in seconds. His father smiled. Would he now? More pulling of the oars. Once again, boy, you put forth a mere toy as a man's weapon. Your sword is a great weapon for court dandies and British officers, but not for a real soldier. A real, spluttered William. Father, your sword is heavy, making it slower, but with modern advances in... Suddenly his father stopped rowing. Here, have a turn. He handed over the oars to the 13-year-old boy, and then watched him struggle with the boat, turning it this way and that. The savages stopped in their canoes, silently observing. After much effort, William figured out how to guide the boat in a straight line. But even so, it moved with a crawl. A determined William rowed on for 2 hours until he was exhausted. His father took the oars back, and they began to move rapidly once more. Why did you fail? William glanced up wearily, but frustrated. I failed because I'm only a boy and do not have experience rowing boats. What if a court dandy or a British officer took over? They would have done much better. Yes, but would they have been able to match me hour for hour? William looked at his father's muscles. Probably not, he admitted. Boy, the knights of old didn't exclusively drill in sword fighting. They were also capable of great feats of strength. Your pretty sword is fast, true. But if I can wield my sword equally fast due to my strength, then you have a problem. You whack my hindquarters with the flat of your blade, and it would sting. If I hit your rump with the flat of my blade, you would take flight. If I am wearing armor, and can move as fast as you can without armor, you have an even larger problem. A terminal one, I'm afraid. William remained silent the rest of the day, brooding about how stupid his father was. Another 2 days' journey was required to reach their new home. William was surprised to find a wooden fort-like structure near the river. Although Indians were everywhere, William suspected Sorry about that, folks. William wondered if this was actually an English settlement. Strapping on his cutlass, pistols, and hunting rifle, William was ready to enter civilization, or what counted for civilization out here. Maybe one of them plays chess, whist, or some other refined entertainment, he thought. Up the incline they went with their savage guides. William noticed a clear parade ground area where English soldiers could drill. As he drew closer, he thought it odd he had not seen one British soldier yet, or any Englishman for that matter. Well, perhaps the local garrison is out on patrol, he thought. Maybe the governor or officer in charge has some books I can borrow. Then William heard French being spoken. Groaning inside, he thought, oh, if the French are in charge of this fortification, that would explain a lot. William cried out a hello in French, trying to find his fellow Europeans. Dodging through the crowd of savages, he attempted to catch sight of them. He heard a French voice call to him from behind and spun to find not Frenchmen, but Indians. They were both around William's age and seemed different from the other Indians. Although the boy had the same deerskin loincloth square, he had no tattoos on his body. The girl wore a deerskin skirt, unlike the other girls who wore fringed pants. William wasn't sure if he was more disturbed that the men were almost naked or that the women wore pants. "What do you want, Englishman?" the boy asked. In French, the boy replied, "Who is in charge of this fort?" "Chief Italy of the Chickasaw Indians," came the reply. "Oh," William said weakly. "Did someone help him build this fort?" "This is not a white man's fort," the Indian boy replied hotly. "The Chickasaws have had homes like this long before the white man arrived. In fact, they used to wear wooden armor like the knights in your own history, until white men brought your cursed metal. Metal arrows went through the armor too easily, so they changed. Your kind makes us change into savages." William was furious. He was not about to be lectured by a boy his own age in a loincloth. "Our metal helps you grow your crops more easily, and our guns help you hunt and protect yourselves. Our things have made you stronger." The boy growled. "Before the white man came, my tribe, the Choctaw, lived in peace with all. When we had trouble in the West, we came here instead of traveling the warpath. We had peace until your kind came. We drove off the first group at great cost and had peace again for many moons. English merchants came, though, selling the Chickasaw guns. The Chickasaw used your English guns to gain power over my people. They sold our boys and girls to the white men as slaves. Then the French arrived in my tribe's life. We thought they were our friends, and they gave us muskets too. Yet they were not our friends. We became their dogs, as the Chickasaw are the English dog. We fight for the French for years, but in the end we learn the French don't care about their dog. Losing the war, they pull out with no thought of what will happen to my people. The cursed English come and offer us a chance to become their dog. I begged my father not to do it, but he wouldn't listen. In the year of 1765, by your reckoning, we became your dog." William did not know what to say. The boy had so much venom in his voice. It poisoned one's heart just listening to it. Finally, William managed, "Well, you have peace with my people now, do you not?" The boy spat. "We were attacked by the Creeks soon after the treaty was signed, and are in a bitter war with them. I find it hard to believe my nation did not help you. We are good to our friends. We are people of honor." Again the boy spat. "A pox on your honor, as you English would say. Yes, your people have tried to get the Chickasaw and other tribes to help us, but not because they care about us. Your people are scared of the Creek, so you sick your dogs on them. When the Creek are gone, you will turn your eye on us." William found his defenses beleaguered. Everything he held dear was under attack from this naked heathen. Well, if you just understood civilization, if you knew the value of books, you would. Once again the boy spat. In 1761, a French nobleman needed a favor. He was bored and desired a new hobby to while away his free time. He wanted to convert savages into civilized people. The fool had more money than brains, so he sent a king's ransom, as you would say. The other Choctaw chiefs were too wise for such an offer, but the wealth clouded my father's judgment. He sent my sister and me that we might learn about the white man and benefit our people. Between the voyage and time in France, I lost 2 years. Instead of hunting under the blue sky, I was forced to study European history. I found your history is full of war and blood. I soon discovered why. Even though I was a small boy, I realized that though the king's court was beautiful, it was a place where everyone lies. What kind of honor can a chief have if he speaks with a forked tongue? When I arrived back home, I told my father never to believe anything a white man says. You are all liars. The last statement, of course, was directed at William. William roared, "My grandfather is not a liar." The Indian boy looked William up and down. "Your grandfather. You don't pick your father as a symbol of truth, but you say, 'My grandfather.' Your father wields a bow and you guns. Your father has a huge sword and you a gentleman's blade. Well, your father is dressed as a man ready for the forest. You appear like a court dandy going to a ball. Is your grandfather the one that gave you all these toys?" "These are not toys. They are tools." The Indian boy smiled. "I challenge you to a shooting competition, white boy. If there's one thing a British dandy understands, it is a wager." Angrily, William pulled out his purse, yanking out some coins. Again the Indian laughed. "Have you heard nothing? I care not for your money. In fact, I hate what it has done to my wise father. It has made him sick." "What do you want, then?" Other village boys began to gather around, asking what was going on. Soon they were all laughing very hard about something. The Indian told him in French, "If I win, you have to dress like a savage for a year." William stood in the middle of them, his face like a stone. "And if I win?" he asked. Now the Indian boy had a sober expression. "If you win, I will be your dog for a year." "No," William answered crisply. "All I want is for you to admit my grandfather is a good man." The Indian was silent, while the other boys pestered him in their language, or in Choctaw, or in someone's language anyway. Finally, his sister translated William's words, and the other Indian boys grew silent too. With a fierce shake of his head, the Indian boy growled, "Your wager is too low." "Funny. I was going to say the same to you," William shot back. They shook hands, and the shooting contest was on. The Indian boy was not as enthusiastic about the wager as he had been before the terms. William wasn't sure why, and at first he thought the savage had overreached himself. Yet the Indian set a large gourd down only 20 paces away. William knew the Indian wasn't scared. Did the Indian feel bad for him? He thought, he wants to beat me, but he no longer wants to humiliate me. "Pick a gourd," the boy said. "I will shoot the other one." Quick as lightning, William drew a dueling pistol and fired without even looking. A gourd ruptured with the hit, sending fragments everywhere. Without taking his eyes off his opponent, William stated calmly, "Let us have a target worthy of the wager, please." Nodding, the Indian took 2 new gourds and walked with them to the border of the woods. At the edge, he placed the gourds on an old stump and walked back 70 paces. William took his position. William walked over to the target and tied a handkerchief to a nearby branch, watching it rustle in a slight breeze. Walking back, William loaded his rifle, aimed, and fired. One of the gourds ripped open with a spray of liquid impulse. In a smooth motion, the Indian did the same. "Let's have a real target, huh?" William said. Grabbing 2 arrows, he went back to the stump, shoving them both into the ground beside it. "Well, you take this arrow, and I will take the other. We must cut the arrow in half with our shot." The Indian boy blanched. It was a long shot, and William knew he had won, just glancing at the boy. Then William noticed something else. The other village boys had all crowded around the Indian boy initially, but now that things looked uncertain, they had abandoned him. One glance at the other boy's eyes told William that this boy was alone, but for his sister. Unbidden, something his grandfather said came back to his mind. "William, even though the Holy Scriptures teach mercy for my fellow man, I often ignored it. Your life has showed me that the Bible is right. Mercy is truly the path to blessing." William had not understood it then, but he did at this moment. "It's a long shot," William said suddenly. "How about 3 tries for us both? What say you?" The other agreed quickly. On his first shot, William fired to the left, close enough to stir the feathers, missing intentionally. His opponent missed honestly. William put the next ball to the right side, moving the feathers again. Another miss from the Indian. William's third shot hit the arrow's knocking point, splintering its top. The Indian hit his arrow in the middle, this time breaking it in two. All the boys cheered and clapped the boy on his back, laughing mightily. William was hustled into a wooden hut and fitted with a loincloth as well as some leather pants. The pants were cut wrong, though, making them worthless for modesty. A cheer went up as he emerged. Instead of gloating, his enemy came over. I may have won, but you seem to have too. I admit, your grandfather has taught you well. William smiled at the savage. William's father came over, having watched the contest with the men. You did well in that competition, boy. I thought you were going to win there for a moment. William shrugged. His father studied him, a smile growing on his face. Both were invited for supper, and the competition boy sat next to William. What is your name, English savage? The boy smiled. William smiled back. My name is William. What is your name, worthy opponent? My name is Truepath, but my father gave me this name blinded by money. I call myself Broken Wing, because his decisions have cheated me time with my people. Even my being here is his will. Now that the Chickasaw are our friends, he wants me to learn about them. He says it will make me a wise chief. I think he only wishes to please his new masters. Well, I like Truepath over Broken Wing. Perhaps your father named you well after all. Maybe you can lead your people in the right direction when you are chief, William commented. Truepath shrugged. Suddenly there was a quieting of voices. The chief asked something of William's father, and his father had not answered. The Indian interpreter knew only English. The Indian interpreter, who knew the only English, repeated, "If the boys can have a contest, why not us? The men heard you say that your bow is better than a musket to your son. I would like to test this. Unlike Truepath, I will take money if you lose." Fine, his father replied. Let us do this before darkness falls. And that is the end of chapter 2.